Joey Longo, A Gangster's Tale by J.N. Wdowski. Be sure to read or listen to the end for your full enjoyment. Please tell us what you think. Positive and negative comments are both welcome. Chapter 26, Confrontation. 1445. Joey pulled up in front of the long-life Golden Walk with Henderson next to him. Tommy was sitting in the back seat of the blue 1969 Camaro. Ethnic Chinese workmen were replacing the shot-out windows and front doors of Chen's restaurant. Two masons were repairing the bullet holes in the brick wall. Joey shut off the engine before all three men exited the classic muscle car. Walking into the restaurant, one of the workmen informed them that the restaurant was not yet open for business. "Here to see Chen," Joey replied as he walked past the workmen and into the establishment with Major Henderson and Tommy in tow. The workman shrugged his shoulders slightly and went back to his task of installing the new glass front doors. Within the restaurant, other workmen were clearing away the shot-up dining room tables and replacing them with new tables and chairs for future diners. The Chinese workmen hesitated shortly as they watched the three Westerners walk past them. Joey led them directly to the back room, where two large Chinese bouncers in business suits stood on guard duty in front of the closed door to Chen's back office. The two large men first looked at each other confused, before one of them turned his attention to Joey. He placed his powerful hand hard against Joey's chest, halting Joey from going any further. "Niman Kunali." Joey immediately took hold of the larger man's wrist and twisted his arm behind his back. Without any direction from Joey, Henderson reached under the man's jacket, pulling out his automatic pistol and pointing the weapon at the head of the other man. Stunned by the quick, decisive moves of Joey and Henderson, the man raised his hands in submission. Tommy then reached under the second bruiser's dress jacket and unarmed him of his shoulder-holstered pistol. "Tommy, watch these two." Joey let go of the unarmed man and shoved him to go sit at one of the nearby tables. Tommy, using the pistol in hand, pointed it at the other man and gestured him to join his comrade. The bouncer kept his hands up, while he focused his frightened eyes on Tommy. He carefully moved and sat at the table. Standing before the two bouncers, Tommy kept his eyes and the weapon trained on them. "I have it," he assured Joey, while not looking away from the two-seated giants. Henderson handed the gun from the thug to Tommy. Taking the second weapon, Tommy aimed one pistol at each of the large, powerful men. Henderson then reached behind him and pulled out a Glock from under his Hawaiian shirt. Reaching into one of his cargo pants pockets, he pulled out a silencer and screwed it onto the barrel of the weapon. He nodded to Joey that he was ready to enter the back room. Joey did not reach for the doorknob. He instead forcibly kicked the door open, causing it to slam loudly against the inner wall. The young gunman within drew his weapon, only to be shot dead by Major Henderson. Chen sat shocked behind a wooden desk. He had been watching the live coverage of the riot outside the NE news station on a large flat screen mounted on one of the walls. Henderson went to the gunman and shot him a second time directly into his head to be sure he was dead. He then kicked the man's weapon across the room away from Chen. Joey did not draw his weapon. He calmly stood before Chen. "Get up!" Chen stood as he raised his hands over his head. Keeping his weapon aimed at the thin, older man, Henderson approached him, using his free hand to pat Chen down. "He's clean." "Of course I am, Major Henderson." Chen smiled, putting his hands down. "You know me?" "Yes, I know you and of your merry band of Yangguizi." "There is your problem, Chen." Joey approached the older man, dressed in the grayish-blue Mao suit. "You keep forgetting that in America you are the foreigner, not us." Chen smirked in contempt. "You will always be the foreign devils, Longo, no matter where you are. America is in decline. The 21st century will be China's." Chen looked up at the silent screen on the wall. A camera crew was shooting the riot from the roof of their news station. At times, the coverage would switch to a camera crew on the ground level from behind the police line. It showed the police still holding strong against the raging protesters and violent black-clad agitators. Your own people are turning against your society. You are behind it, Joey responded. You have no proof of that. Your system prevents you from touching me. Yet I can indirectly touch you. Chen impishly grinned. He looked down at the dead gunman on the floor. How will you explain him to your government? You broke into my place of business and murdered one of my employees. Joey stepped a bit closer to Chen. Not your concern. Your concern is not ending up like him. Chen's grin widened. Neither of you would kill an unarmed man. Chen looked at Henderson and Joey as he showed his empty hands to them both. You cannot touch me, based on your own foolishness. His eyes directed Joey to look at the news broadcast again. Yet it seems those you care about can be touched. The Indian doctor, the detective's daughter, and even the Hey Ren Fu Nu reporter who is even now being assaulted by your own fellow Americans. These useful idiots can touch them, yet you cannot touch me. Without any thought or emotion, Joey's right hand sprung like a pulled-back rubber band finally released. His hand forcibly gripped the older man by his throat, and with great speed he slammed the back of Chen's head hard against the brick wall behind him. Chen's eyes bulged with shock and fear from the sudden strike. His feet dangled off the floor as Joey held him up against the wall. Looking sternly and calmly, Joey coldly responded, If you touch any of them, I will kill you. Joey felt the warmth of the man's blood dripping on his hand that held him up. The light in Chen's eyes faded before him. Joey let go, causing Chen's lifeless body to drop to the floor. Joey looked at the fresh blood upon his hand. He briefly looked down on Chen before turning to Henderson, who had lowered his weapon. You did what you had to do, the major responded. I didn't plan that. Joey was visibly shaken. There was no thought process. I just acted. Like I said, you did what you had to do. He removed the silencer from his weapon and reholstered it under the back of his Hawaiian shirt. Joey looked up at the video screen of the riot. Union members and Rodrigo's rulers had arrived. They began pushing in from both ends of the crowd. They were not hesitating to use force against the rioters. The longshoremen and teamsters pushed first to Henderson's men to aid them in protecting Tricia and Mitch. As the tide shifted, most of the protesters started dropping their signs and fleeing the scene. The police line finally began to move forward, grabbing and arresting those clad in black that were foolishly still attempting to throw rocks at the officers. Henderson turned and looked up at the scene. They're breaking. Joey looked down from the large television and back at Chen's and his gunmen's bodies. This isn't over. Henderson replied, It never is. You knew that when you started all of this. Looking at the major, Joey answered, I didn't start this. He looked back down at Chen's body. They started this decades ago. The End. Be sure to enjoy the other works by J.N. Wdowski.
To support the author, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.